Okay, well, welcome everybody. We are going to get started. I'm so excited for this class today. I've really been looking forward to hearing about fitness nutrition. I seriously have been geeking out a little bit about this. If you all have been to some of Melanie's classes before, they're really great and you always learn a lot. So I'm really looking forward to it. Our speaker today is Melanie Burdick. She is a nutritionist for Giant Food based in Ellicott City. She's a registered dietitian, a licensed dietitian, nutritionist, a certified diabetes care and education specialist, and a certified specialist in obesity and weight management. She's also a certified personal trainer. So she knows a lot about what she's going to teach us today. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Dietetics from Eastern Michigan University and a Master of Science in Applied Nutrition from the University of New England. She believes in practical steps to improving health and wellness where no foods are off limits. We all like to hear that. This class is being recorded. There is a Q&A button at the bottom. We will be taking questions at the end, so please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. There's also a chat function. If you have any questions, technical issues throughout the class, I'll be monitoring the chat. As a reminder, we do appreciate that you fill out a survey at the end of the class because that helps us know what classes to plan for the future and how we can do better and what you have enjoyed learning and what's been helpful. There is also a note in the chat about the real-time captions that are available for this class. So there is the option to have closed captioning while you are watching. Please do make a note that we have another nutrition class coming up just this week on Thursday, January 21st at 11. And that one's going to be about New Year's resolutions. And it's going to talk about some wellness apps and also address nutritional issues. And it's also a giant nutrition class. So we're looking forward to that as well. And I am going to kick this off to Melanie. So enjoy the class, everyone. And I will be back at the end again for the Q&A.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I just love getting together with you guys every time. It's a great time. So thank you everyone for participating today. My name again is Melanie Burdick and I am your local Giant nutritionist. So my office is actually right in Ellicott City, right up the road at the Chatham Station Giant. And when we're finished with today's presentation, I'll give a little bit more detail about some of the things that we do at Giant. So today we're going to be focusing all about fueling up and powering down. So we're going to focus on, what to eat and drink before and after a workout and some things to consider throughout your day while you're eating your meals. So whether you're just starting out, if your exercise or fitness is new to you, or you're a seasoned athlete, you'll receive some great tips today. All right, so on the menu for today, first we're going to talk a little bit about those macronutrients in our diet and the connection with exercise. What purpose do they serve and what should we have to fuel our body appropriately? And then we'll talk a little bit about that pre-workout strategy. What should we do to kind of get our body ready for exercise? And then what things can we do in that post-workout recovery meal or snack to really help our body with that recovery period? All right, so before we jump into some of the specifics, for your workout and recovery, let's just talk a little bit about the different items that we have in our diet and what they serve for our body too. So we know in our daily eating routine, we have those wonderful macronutrients, our carbohydrates, our protein, and our fats. And each one of these are important. And I'll walk through the details on the next couple of slides. And then of course, when we're having our meals, we're probably having fluids as well. And so we know we want to make sure that we're staying hydrated. Our body's more than 50% water. And so to keep it at its optimal performance level, we want to make sure that it's hydrated appropriately. And then of course, because I love food. It's probably one of the biggest reasons I became a dietitian. We have lots of wonderful treats in our daily eating routine. And so when we're thinking about fueling our body, we want to take a look at, how frequently and how much are we eating some of these treats? Because a saying that I heard many, many years ago is, unfortunately, you can't out exercise a poor diet. So we want to think about what are the foods that we're choosing throughout the day. And we want to make sure that we still enjoy the things that we have. So we want to be mindful about those treats and maybe any other sneaky calories that might be coming into our diet, like those additional fluids that might be sweetened. So let's take a look at some of the different macronutrients that we need during the day. So first off, we have carbohydrates. And so I know a lot of us know carbs, a lot of us hear different things, but carbohydrates are very important. They're the preferred fuel source during, intense exercise. And so if we don't have enough carbohydrates or we really restrict our carbohydrate intake, what can happen is that once that carbohydrate storage in your body, also known as glycogen stores, are depleted, your body will also start to move to the muscles and use those along with ketone bodies for fuel. And so we want to make sure that we're getting the proper fuel, so to speak. So we want to make sure that we're getting plenty of carbohydrates throughout the day. And so, when you think carbohydrates, think maintaining energy and really help minimizing fatigue. And that can help during your day while you're working, and then also when you get to the gym. And so there are lots of wonderful choices that we have available when you think about carbohydrates. Of course, we have complex and we have simple. And I'll talk a little bit more about when to choose some of these items. Now, generally, when we think about carbohydrates in our general eating pattern, we want to focus on those complex carbohydrates. So those are going to be items that are minimally processed. So oftentimes we think of things such as bread or pasta or cereal. And so when you're looking at these items for your regular meals, want to focus on those whole grains. Again, those are going to be those items that aren't processed. So they have that fiber and protein, and that gives you staying power throughout the day. And it can also help, well, one, with energy, but then also think about blood sugar levels, your GI health and constipation, and your heart health. So really choosing those complex carbohydrates for each of your meals can really make a difference. Now we have some of the simple carbohydrates as well. So when we think about simple, we might think of candy or treats or things that are refined. So things like crackers and bread that are made with white flour. So that's when that fiber and protein has been stripped and we're just left with the starch. And definitely each of these different types of carbohydrates can play a role in our exercise. So we'll talk a little bit more as we go through about when to choose those. Now, a big question that people ask all the time, they say, how much carbohydrate do I need? Now, again, all of our nutritional needs are very individualized. So if you have particular questions about your needs or what you should be aiming for, we're more than happy to help. And so I'll provide my email address at the end of the presentation. So if you have particular questions about things that you need to meet your wellness goals, definitely reach out. I can give you that information. But for the average person, when we think about carbohydrates, our daily needs should range anywhere from 45 to 65% of our daily calories. So that's actually a significant amount. It's a big chunk of our day when we think about our food choices. So if you're following a 2,000 calorie diet, which is the average for most Americans, that would mean that you would need about a range of anywhere from 225 or to almost 325 grams of carbohydrate a day, just to give you an example of how much you would need. And so depending on what your wellness goals are, maybe you're managing things such as diabetes or other health conditions, this range may vary a little bit, but just to give you kind of the general range for how much you should have in a day. All right. And then other things that you can look for. So protein. Protein is very important and it is built up of amino acids, which are those building blocks for your body's muscles and tissues. So very, very important. Your entire body needs it, every single cell. requires protein to function at its optimal level. So very, very important. Now, what we found is that when people have protein throughout their day, so each meal and snack, when it's spread throughout the day, it's actually used more effectively and may help your body maintain and help build that muscle. Now, another question that people ask very frequently, they say, how much protein do I need? So, for the average American, so for someone that maybe isn't a big exerciser or physically active, the bare minimum for women for protein is about 46 grams a day. For men, it's a minimum of 56 grams. Now, as we do different types of exercises, the more stress that we put on our body, the more we're using and building those muscles, the more we're going to need to help meet those needs. So, for the average person, when we think about exercise, we can use a few different formulas to figure that out. For the average person, if you want to figure out the protein that you need, you can do some quick math. So, the goal would be about 0.8 grams to 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight as your baseline for protein needs. Now, if you are doing a lot of sporting events, maybe you're training, maybe you're doing a lot of weightlifting or other activities, those protein needs are going to increase. And that could be anywhere from a range of 1.2 to 1.7 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. I know what you're probably thinking. She just said a lot of numbers. Really, the general goal, I would say, is aim to get at least 46, if not more, grams of protein a day. And a great way to do that is to use an online tracker to see how the breakdown of your macronutrients is going. And that can give you a guideline. And definitely always reach out with questions. And then finally, so some other macronutrients here. Let's see here. All right, I see one of the questions. So definitely some examples. I'll show you in the next slide, I'll show you some examples of some great options to choose for your different items, for your proteins. So that's a great question. So your macronutrients, your fat content. So this is another area too where people aren't really sure how much they should have, but fats play an important role. They're a storage house for vitamins and minerals and energy. And they also can provide insulation and padding for your organs too. And it also can help absorb those fat soluble vitamins. So we should have anywhere from about 20 to 35% of our daily needs from fat a day. Now, when we think about fat, we want to opt for those unsaturated fats. So here we have some on the slide, things like olive oil, almonds, or avocados. So these are those unsaturated fats that are going to be beneficial for your heart health. So definitely some things that you want to make sure that you have in your diet, but we don't need to have a whole lot to meet our needs. All right. And then when we're thinking about those general meals, think about the balance of your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Again, we want to make sure as we go through the day, we are fueling our body appropriately. So one thing that we can do, and this is great for everyone, no matter what your wellness goals are, use the USDA MyPlate as that goal, as that balance. So think about building each of your meals with half plate of some type of produce, fruit and vegetables. It could be fresh, frozen, or canned varieties, whatever meets your needs. And then thinking about what type of grain am I going to have with a meal? What type of protein could I have? And these could be plant or animal-based proteins as well. So there's a lot of different options that you can fill your plate, and that way you can be ready for when you hit the gym. All right, so let's talk a little bit more because I know we had a couple of questions about the number of grams and things to look for. Now, when we're getting ready for our exercise routine, we want to make sure that we've been fueling ourselves appropriately throughout the day, but sometimes we need just a boost of energy beforehand. Sometimes I know many individuals might have lunch and then they might go to the gym after work. That can be a really long time. So if you want to just give yourself a little bit more energy before those workouts, a simple thing that you can do is have a small snack, some sort of carbohydrate. And again, this is going to help increase those glycogen stores in your body and help fuel those muscles. So when you're thinking about a pre-workout snack, we want to do a little switch. We want to think about those simple carbohydrates. Now, it's a little bit different from what I said earlier. When we think about our pre-workout fuel, we want things to be absorbed pretty quickly, and we also want it to be easier on our gut. So when we think about getting ready for an exercise snack, think about something that can be easily digested. So here we have some great examples: saltine crackers, dried fruit, applesauce, or even just a piece of fruit. That's going to help give you the essential nutrients. And then you might have a little bit more pep in your step before you go to the gym. Now, some people may have a hard time eating something before they go to the gym. If you feel like you need a little boost of energy, some people might take a little bit of, say, Powerade or Gatorade just to get a little bit of a boost, or some of the exercise carbohydrate chews just to get a little bit more energy. Now, depending on what you're doing, what type of exercise, if it's a yoga class, you may not need that exercise fuel per se. A small snack would be fine. If you're planning on doing maybe a long bike ride, or maybe it's a tournament day where you have lots of games going on, then you might need to have something a little bit larger before you get onto the playing field. All right. And when we think about after our workout, so generally, roughly anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour before our exercise, we want to have something to get us ready. And then when we're finished with our exercise, we want to think about the 3 R's. So powering down, so refueling our energy that we've just used. We've just pulled a lot of energy from our glycogen stores, and so we need to refuel those. We need to repair our muscles, and then we need to rehydrate as much as possible. So after your exercise, you want to think about grabbing either a snack or having a nice, well-balanced meal that contains both carbohydrates and protein. And that way, you're going to refuel and repair those muscles. And so it could be something as simple as chocolate milk. That's a real popular one that many people choose. So if you're leaving the gym and maybe you won't have dinner for, say, another hour or so, and you feel like you need to have something, you could take a shake with you and have that on your way home. You could also do something like a protein bar or a trail mix, some nuts and seeds. So you have that protein, a little bit of fat, and those carbohydrates. And then we also want to think about rehydrating after we've been to the gym. Depending on the type of workout that you've done, some of those cardio classes, some of those weight training classes, we can lose a lot of fluid. So we want to make sure that you are continuing to rehydrate at least 30 minutes to an hour after leaving the gym to make sure that you're getting all of those fluids in. So definitely when you go for your exercise or preparing for your pre-workout, simple, something small, carbohydrate based. And then after the gym, something, again, those carbohydrate and that protein combination. All right. And so here are some great examples of things that you could choose before a meal. So you can look for, if you're making a sandwich for lunch, something like the Dave's Killer Bread gives you that fiber and protein and heart healthy fat. So it's a great combination to get you ready for your day and to keep you feeling satisfied throughout your afternoon. Other things that you can do that are great, again, those whole grains, the Kodiak cake varieties are wonderful. If you love to do pancakes, if you love to do muffins, these have whole grains and added protein that can really keep you full. And it'll help you meet those protein needs that you need for the day. And then other things like brown rice. Here we have the minute rice you just pop into the microwave. Other things that you can do would be a microwavable quinoa pack or making some whole grain pasta. Those would all be wonderful options to choose when you're making your meals throughout the day. All right, so let's talk about proteins more and more. So again, for our protein goals, we should aim for at least 46 grams for women and at least 56 for men. So I know everybody says, what in the world does that look like when that comes to food? So when you're thinking about some of your favorite food items, say chicken or fish, Each ounce is about 6 to 7 grams of protein. So if you have part of your meal, say maybe a chicken breast with lunch, and maybe you have, a pork chop for dinner, if those are roughly about 3 ounces, then that would be about 18 to 20 plus grams of protein just in that one serving of meat. So that can give you a visual of what does that gram allotment transfer into food servings. Other great options that you can use for proteins. Yogurt is a wonderful option. 1 cup of Greek yogurt has about 20 grams of protein. So if I have that as part of my breakfast or a snack, I am well on my way to meeting my goal for the day. Other great options, you can choose hard-boiled eggs. Each egg is 6 grams of protein. So if I have that as part of my breakfast or maybe as a snack, that's another great way to meet my needs. Other wonderful things here, the salmon or the tuna fish, those individual packets you can keep at your desk or in your pantry, have anywhere from 15 to 20 grams per packet, which is wonderful. Other things like even the crunchsters. So these are sprouted mung bean snacks. And so these are a great fiber and protein snack that would be great after exercising. So it's a little bit easier on your gut. And then another great dairy option, cottage cheese. Wonderful protein source. A half cup can have anywhere from 12 to 18 grams of protein. So in a small serving, you can pack a lot of protein. And then if you're looking for other plant-based options, frozen or the shelled edamame are wonderful. So here we have the Nature's Promise shelled edamame. These are wonderful. There's no added salt, and you can add these to a salad as a snack, and a wonderful way to get 10 to 15 grams of protein per roughly half cup to a 3/4 cup serving. So great protein options. All right. And then I talked a little bit about hydrating, after you're exercising, but we really want to think about hydrating throughout the day. And we want to make sure that water is our first choice. Sometimes people may say, I'm feeling a little bit tired. I get a little sleepy in the afternoon. And even just having a glass of water can really just make you perk up and feel so much more energized. So when we're also thinking about our wellness goals, we want to be careful with any of those liquid calories that we might take in, because that can hinder our wellness goals. So maybe we're exercising for weight loss, but if we're having a lot of sugar sweetened beverages, that can actually keep us from meeting those goals. So think about making water your first choice. And if you're not crazy about water, you can do things like seltzer water or carbonated water, or you can put a slice of fruit in your water bottle. And that's a great way to stay refreshed and just give a little pizzazz to your typical water. Now, when we're thinking about exercising as you're preparing, so if you're carrying a water bottle throughout the day, you're sipping it, you're staying hydrated, as you prepare to do your exercise routine, about 2 to 3 hours, you really want to make sure that you're increasing those fluids. So general rule would be about 16 ounces, just 2 to 3 hours before you go to the gym. And then as you're getting ready, having about another cup or so, about 15 minutes before you do your activity. And then we want to remember, whatever you're doing, so whether you're on the treadmill, maybe you're lifting weights, maybe you're doing a yoga class or a power flow class, keep water with you while you're doing those activities. So really aiming for about 4 ounces about every 15 to 20 minutes of exercise. So if you're taking an hour-long class, then you might have a drink maybe 2 to 3 times. And that's really just about 2 to 3 gulps of water. And then we want to think about, after that exercise routine, the fluid that we lost really can make our body not work at its optimal level. So making sure that you're drinking anywhere from about 16 to 20 ounces of water after you've finished with your activity. So, it's always great. I know when I leave the gym, I fill up my water bottle and I try to drink it on my way home to make sure that I'm staying hydrated. And really, it's going to make such a difference with your blood pressure. It's going to make it easier for your heart to pump fluid if you're hydrated. And it's also going to help with that circulation and as a method to help keep you cool because you are losing a lot of fluid with sweat. Now, for another big question that we get frequently, what if I'm doing really intense exercise? When should I drink a sugar sweetened beverage? And so, if you're doing an activity, maybe you're on a long bike ride over the weekend or doing a long run with some running mates, part of your running club, or maybe you're at a high altitude, or it's a very, very hot day. Think July, summertime tournaments. If we're losing a lot of fluid, then we want to make sure that we're replacing them pretty quickly. So you can use something like Gatorade or Powerade to help rehydrate and to keep those electrolytes in balance. But generally, for the average exerciser, we are just fine with water as part of our typical routine. And again, too, we want to make sure with each bottle of Gatorade or a sweetened beverage, it can be 200 to 300 calories. So we do want to be mindful about our goals and what we're taking in and the environment that we're working out to help make sure you're meeting all of your goals. All right. So really pulling it all together, when you're thinking about powering up and fueling down, again, we want to make sure that we're giving our body the best fuel possible. So choosing those nutrient dense meals throughout the day. So thinking about half plate produce, a quarter protein, and a quarter grains with each of your meals. And then keeping that water bottle nearby to make sure that you're getting all the fluid that you need, and keep that with you during and after your activities so you can help replenish any losses. And then two, so pre-workout, think about those quick carbohydrates. Definitely something that can get into your bloodstream quickly to help keep you energized. But then when you're finished with that workout, think about what are some nutrient dense things that I could have to help build those muscles and replenish those glucose stores. So a carbohydrate and a protein combination. So again, something as simple as a peanut butter sandwich or an energy bar can be a great option. Now, if you're looking for some other inspiration, maybe you're looking for some different snacks or different meal ideas just to kind of help jazz things up, there's lots of great options available for different cooking inspirations and meal inspirations. So you can always check out our Savory magazine. It's available in store or online at giantfood.com. Wonderful things if you're looking for some new snack ideas, or maybe you're looking for a great smoothie recipe for after a workout. A great resource. And then other things that you can utilize as well. There's different meal planning apps available and wonderful cooking websites, along with savory.com, Cooking Light, and tablespoon.com are two of my favorites that I go to help find some wonderful things for our meals and snacks. And then finally, so at Giant, I am one of 10 in-store nutritionists, and we are here to help you. So we are offering all of our services for free. You can speak with us one-on-one for a consultation. So if you have particular questions about what you need to meet your wellness goals, you can certainly reach out to me or any of the other nutritionists on our team. All of our information is at giantfood.com/nutrition. And then we also have wonderful webinars that are ongoing every week. You can find those at our website as well. And then something new that we've launched in the fall of last year. If you are a Facebook user, you can join our Healthy Living by Giant page. And this is a wonderful Facebook group that's run by the nutritionist team. And we love to show different health and wellness tips. And we love to see what our customers are doing. And it's a great way just to connect when we're in this virtual space. So definitely check that out. Just search for Healthy Living by Giant if you're on Facebook, and you'll find us. And one last wonderful resource that we have our Nutrition Made Easy podcast, which is available on our website, and you can listen to it again online or on your favorite podcast app. And wonderful options for things to inspire you. So whether you are looking to manage your health, lose weight, or working on some of your fitness nutrition, we have those episodes available for you to listen to. And they are just a wealth of information. I am always just amazed every time I listen to one. I always get some new information. And so definitely you can check out the Fueling Your Run podcast as you move towards some of your health and wellness goals related to exercise. So I highly recommend that. If you're walking or running, that's a great way to keep yourself entertained. But then kind of moving forward, when we're thinking about exercise goals, maybe spend some time this week and think about, pre-planning your exercise snacks or post snacks, and see if you notice a difference in your energy level when you are doing your favorite activities. So whether it's swimming, yoga, Pilates, hitting the gym, whatever it is, see if that makes a difference in your workout. All right. Well, I will stop there, and I am happy to answer any questions. I know we talked a lot about a lot of numbers, so I'm happy to clarify any of that.
Thanks so much, Melanie. I always
Mhm.
learn something new, and you always mention
Mhm.
something that I want to try. Sprouted mung bean snacks. Okay, now I
Yeah.
have to check that out. And as you were talking, I drank
Mhm.
some water. I always have my
Excellent.
water, and then I
Yes.
forget to drink it. So yeah, I always learn something. We do have a question.
Sure.
I'm on the intermittent fasting diet.
Mhm.
This participant says, is it dangerous to work out before I eat anything in the morning?
This is, it can vary per person. I have done a lot of research on intermittent fasting. My area was more specific towards weight loss. Some things that we caution when it comes to intermittent fasting, if you have any issues with hypoglycemia or happen to have diabetes, we really try to be cautious with that because we don't want to have a low blood sugar event. Now, there are some studies that have looked at, individuals that have exercised on an empty stomach that actually might be beneficial for wellness outcomes. So I think it can vary per person. I think it depends on the type of fasting routine that you're doing, since there's so many variations out there, anything from 12 hours on and off to some days only having a few hundred calories. So definitely, if we could talk offline in more detail, I'd be happy to give you some more information to see what would work best for you. Now, you might find that you do better on an empty stomach exercising. It is individualized.
Yeah, I've read too, some people say, well, they're fasting, but you can
Mhm.
still drink in the morning, like a cup of
Mhm.
tea or some coffee.
Mhm.
Do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there are so many different variations of fasting. I'll just say, many years ago, as my grad school thesis, intermittent fasting was the focus of my study, and you can there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. You can definitely stay hydrated. That is no problem. Tea, some people might do like a low calorie protein drink. And, there are so many different classifications for fasting that would be okay as well, too. So I think it depends on kind of the goals, what works best for you. But if you're noticing, if you're exercising and you're feeling very weak or shaky or lightheaded, then it might be an indication that you might need some fuel before that morning exercise.
And in terms of intermittent fasting,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I know you mentioned, taking in your protein throughout the day, and I've heard you say that before, meeting your
mm-hmm,
nutritional needs throughout the
mm-hmm,
day.
mm-hmm.
And if you're on intermittent fasting and you're only eating for a certain amount of time per day,
Uh-huh.
should you have just the 3 meals or the 2 meals, or should you have small amounts of food throughout that time?
It can vary. There are some intermittent fasting methods that allow you, that say you can eat within a certain window, and maybe it's 6 hours or 8 hours. And depending on what works for your system, if eating a lot in a small time frame is just too much for your system, you could do smaller snacks throughout that time frame. Some people choose to do maybe a larger meal and then maybe something smaller. We want to make sure that we're getting all of our nutrient needs in, and that we're not, missing anything, and we're not going too low with those energy stores too. So it can be a little bit tricky when it comes to exercise. It also depends the type that you're doing too. Is how strenuous is it? If it is it walking the dog or is it yoga? You might be able to do those on an empty stomach. So it's a long answer.
No, it's a very interesting topic,
it
and
is very. Mm-hmm.
It's one of those topics that now that so many of us are home, we're ruminating over those things.
And, and really the consensus from the research that I did, I looked at probably 50 studies. Intermittent fasting, they found it to not be superior when compared to a low calorie diet. It's another method that you can certainly do. I think it just depends on what works for you. Some people are fine. Other people, it's more difficult. So very detailed.
Yeah. And I think also with a lot of us being home, we do kind of think more about food and when we're going to eat and what we're going to eat. So I thought that was interesting when you talked about pre-planning your snacks as well.
Yes.
Like it gives you another thing to think about introducing little healthy boosts throughout the day.
Yeah. And right now, because a lot of us, we have shifted from being in the workplace to home, we're right in the kitchen. And so there might be a lot of grazing. And so just pre-planning what you're going to do throughout the day can really just help so many other goals, your weight management, your glucose goals. And when we have a plan, we usually are more successful when it comes to meeting those.
That's a really good point. In the chat, we have a question. How many hours should there be between eating dinner and bedtime? And when is the best time of the day to exercise for sports performance?
So, really, this is a big question. So before going to bed, generally we say, give yourself at least 2 to 3 hours. Now, some people, if they eat, they have a lot of acid reflux. They can't relax when they go to bed. So depending on what your stomach can handle and what's comfortable, generally giving yourself that 2 to 3 hour window. Now, maybe you have a day where you're busy, you get home late, and you do have something closer to bedtime. Maybe it's something just a little bit later. So it may not always be a perfect routine. But definitely I would say give yourself at least 30 minutes to an hour bare minimum to digest before laying down. It might be more comfortable. And then the second question, best time of day for sports performance. There's a lot of different thoughts on what works best for people. I always kind of go to what works in your routine. Is it first thing in the morning? Do you feel like you're your prime? Or is it the afternoon or evening too? So any time of day that you can do it is going to be beneficial. You may notice that maybe afternoon, the day has caught up with you. So maybe the early morning session might be more beneficial. But it can vary per person, unfortunately. I don't have an exact answer.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
We have another question. Do you burn more fat if you don't fuel before, I assume before exercising?
It can depend on what your day has looked like. So, we are going to use those like glycogen stores for, those intense exercises, something that's more, lower impact. You are going to have some fat burn. It depends on what you have to eat beforehand. You may still have fat burn if you have something to eat. It can vary per person.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm just gonna ask all of you, if you have any questions, do post them now. Thank you. Yes, I agree that this was a great class and very, very helpful. And as Melanie said, there's so many resources online, the Facebook group, and we do post these videos to the library's on demand channel. So definitely check that out. I encourage you to register for Thursday's class, which sounds really great. Melanie just posted her email in case
Oh,
you
yeah.
want to chat offline with her and you have any questions additionally for her.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and we do also have the survey in the chat. We do appreciate feedback, and we, welcome your recommendations for future classes and such. So is there anything else, Melanie, you'd like to close out
That's
with?
it. Thank you so much. Definitely anything specific, please reach out. I'm happy to go into detail on any concerns or, the lifestyle routine that you have to kind of make it individualized for you. No problem.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.